One of the great things about NTCA's members is their commitment to their communities, their service, and we're at Vantage Point, and they reflect their customers, the NTCA members, with their commitment to service. And Larry, we just ran into each other and we started talking about Uganda, and you brought a mission over there to do a mission. Why don't you tell us about what the heck you were doing in Uganda a few months ago?
All right, thanks, Ken. Yeah, so we went out to some of the rural areas in Uganda, and places where they make $2 a day, typically, and live in mud huts. So we've been helping build schools with a ministry called AsOne Ministries in Uganda. And recently we went out and we're building broadband networks out there as well, not just in the United States, but in Uganda we're putting up Wi-Fi networks in Uganda so that the kids can communicate, building computer labs and things like that.
Well, and it's a little bit different there. You don't talk about a mid-mile challenge, right? Tell us to kind of describe that.
Oh, there's middle mile, last mile, every mile challenge, because you don't even have reliable power there. There'll be power outages for days on time. But the people there, the kids, eager to learn, just love to be able, they'll walk hours in the morning just to be able to go to school, because that's the really opportunity. And once they get there, it's inadequate facilities. And so we're really helping them to be able to raise their level so they have opportunities like, we have opportunities over here.
Well, and so Jackie and Christy, you guys got involved in this, and why don't you tell us about your experience?
Yeah, Larry's very passionate about AsOne Ministries, and that passion is really contagious. And so a few years ago, I got involved as well. And I've actually been to Uganda twice with Larry. Once when we were doing the Wi-Fi network, and another time when they were sort of piloting this idea of building capacity and building a leadership capacity within their communities. And I got to help pilot that with them as I did a leadership conference for the community. And it was wonderful, exactly what Larry said. Just like the kids there are really eager for that education and eager for that opportunity. There's a real earnestness that the Ugandans there want more leadership training. They want more skills. They know that this is their opportunity to improve their lives and their communities and their families. And so it's been incredibly inspiring. And last year when we went, Christy and I were both involved with a leadership conference specifically for the women in the villages there. And Christy, you had a bigger hand in that than I did, so I'll let you talk about that.
Thanks, Jackie. Yeah, so it was an awesome opportunity to go on this trip this past October, and I was able to lead a session on balancing how to be a leader, a mother, and a wife. And, I'm talking to Jackie, it's like, how do I prepare for this? And, I had a half-hour session talking, but at the end of it, I learned more from them because the women that were in attendance had their babies, they were feeding their kids, at the conference and navigating everything. I mean, it's the role that the women play in Uganda is amazing.
One thing we learned over there is how similar we all are.
Oh, yeah.
Where the same kind of challenges they have, maybe to a little different scale, are the same that we have. You might look at them and say, well, they only make $2 a day, but we have a whole different sense of what poverty is after you come back, because they're very happy, they're content, and they've learned to work with that. They might live in a mud hut and have no plumbing, no electricity or anything like that, but they're content and they're happy. They're trying to raise families, they're trying to have a job and things like that also. And so a lot of the same kind of challenges that we have, just maybe at a little different scale.
Well, and the ministry sounds wonderful, the impact that just a couple $1 million has.
Well, one thing over there, and it's similar to, the industry we work in here with telecom, is we're always talking about sustainability. How do we build these networks and make them sustainable? We do the thing over there as well, where if you can get them over that CapEx hump, kind of like with BEAD or with some of these programs, get them over the CapEx, a lot of times you can start sustaining them. That's what we're trying to do there, is be able to raise enough tuition to pay teacher salaries and things where you might not be able to build a building or put in that Wi-Fi network, but once it's there, hopefully you can make enough revenue to be able to continue that with, maybe an adjacent farm or a hair salon and a bakery or things like that we're doing there also. Jackie, anything else?
Yeah, when I think about Vantage Point, when I think about rural telecom in general, we're really impacting people's lives and we're bringing people together and we are helping them help themselves. And in so many ways, that's what AsOne does. And that's what the Ugandans, empowering Ugandans model really helps with. like Larry says, if you can get over that CapEx hump, they are smart and resilient and eager and inspired. And they have all the skills that they need. What they need is some help to get started. And it's really an honor to do that. You know, Vantage Point, we talk a lot about how the spirit of Vantage Point is the spirit of service, that we believe better broadband means better lives, but it's that better lives component that we really thrive on, and that AsOne really allowed us that opportunity to bring over to those communities in Uganda. So it was a really powerful experience. I'm headed back again this summer for some additional leadership training that we're going to be providing there. It's just been great. Christy, was there anything that came to mind for you?
Well, I think I hit it. You know, the one thing, like Larry said, they may only be making $2, but they are so appreciative for what they have. You would think that they live in a mansion over there, just because they are so thankful and the most happy and embracing and loving people. And it's powerful.
That's amazing. And from a presentation perspective, is this the type of thing where it's a PowerPoint? Or?
Oh, no. No, it's outside, and they are sitting on the floor. They are sitting in lawn chairs, whatever they have. We had kids hanging up in the tree, just wanting to learn and absorb. And yeah, I mean, in United States, we think of leaders in, you know, the industry, you know, the CEOs, the GMs, but they're a community leader. It's not a career path. It's their lifestyle.
The problem is, if you plan it around a PowerPoint, the chances are you're not going to have commercial power, so you don't have anything to plug it into. You know, when we got over there, we were like 3 days before we actually got commercial power back, and so those kinds of things are just not that reliable.
Yeah, that's what I figured. And one of the things that impressed me was, I think you mentioned 185 of the employees of the ministry are actually Ugandans, right?
Yep, they only have like 3 employees over here in the U.S. It's 185. Their motto is Ugandans empowering Ugandans. And so they're really building an infrastructure that they'll be able to take over and run and sustain someday as well.
From an infrastructure standpoint, Larry, did you learn anything?
Well, I learned a lot about, you know, how to continue to make these things run when you don't have all the things that we take for granted over here. You know, you're constantly recharging little SIM cards because right now it's connected to the cell network. And what do you do when the power goes out? And, you know, they still need to be able to access the internet to do their Zoom calls and, you know, those kinds of things. So yeah, you've got to kind of relearn. I was teaching kids in the lab, because we'd set up a computer lab as well, you know, how to, you know, use a mouse that they had never used before. They're great on their phones, but being able to point to the little X in the upper right-hand corner to close the window was a completely new concept to them. And they were like 8th graders.
Wow. And so from a World Wide Web perspective, is that part of the outreach too, to kind of teaching them how to use this great resource?
Yep. So they have access now to a lot of the stuff that the kids here, to be able to have, you know, those kind of opportunities. We actually set servers up over there as well that have all the content offline. So when the power does go out, they can continue to, it appears like they're surfing the web, but everything's cached locally. So you're playing, you know, games like that to be able to overcome some of those obstacles that you have in a third world country like Uganda.
Wow, well, this is very exciting. I so admire the work you're doing and have done, and will continue to do. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Ken.
Thank you.